So what did they do? They said just do it, and they put him in little handcuffs. Will the Mueller report end the insanity, or have we already opened up another can of congressional worms? Let's meet tonight's panel. This is a fantastic way to start the week. America in the Age of Trump. Co-author. She loves the president so much. She wrote a book about him. It's Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov. This is a great day for you. I don't think I've seen you.
I told you this is the cherry on top. Let's be clear. No matter what the Democrats are actually saying, Trump actively colluded with Russia to steal the election from Hillary Clinton. That's not a number. Make it or law. Period. They should all be humiliated.
Are you humiliated, Jessica?
I feel pretty good, actually. I wouldn't call myself a collusion truther, and I was always advocating that you win elections on issues, which we did in the midterms, and hopefully Nancy Pelosi will
with the help of moderates. We cannot forget that.
No, and independents. And in 2020, a lot of them are going to be up for grabs here. I think what you're going to see is a shift. If we get the Mueller report, which hopefully we do, so that everyone can at least
read it. Everyone's going to get the Mueller report. Yeah. Everyone's going to read it. It's going to say pretty much the same thing.
Mitch
there might
McConnell
be some embarrassing specifics in there, but by and large, I don't think William Barr was taking poetic license with the report. I don't think that he's lying to Congress when he says this is the big takeaway. I agree with you. I want to see it. I don't think there are going to be the series of bombshells.
No,
but Hail Marys that Democrats
I'm saying that if you want to satisfy people who believe a certain thing, and you're completely correct that people do, they think that there was active collusion, and Robert Mueller laid out both sides for obstruction of justice, the people are going to want to read that themselves. The narrative will shift, though, from active collusion to useful idiot collusion, which is now what people are talking about, that there were contacts with the Russians, which were unsavory, that people made mistakes, Paul Manafort giving over data, Carter Page, et cetera, and that will be the narrative for those who want to continue down that tack to say, okay, maybe they didn't know what they were doing, but they played right into Russia's hands, and he's still Putin's puppet, and they'll go into 2020 like that.
But still Putin's puppet. That's the thing. I mean, that is a... And I
brought up John Brennan. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but he said the final element of Robert Mueller's investigation would be the arrest of Donald Trump's family members. That would be the death knell of the presidency, and that would be his final act.
And then this morning on Morning...
The alternative would have been horrible.
Yes.
It would have been horrible for the presidency. It would have been even worse for the country. That's a god-awful reality, and it's sad, to Matt's point, that there are people who are hoping for that. And to your point, I think Democrats have to be very careful going forward with these congressional investigations. And Jessica's right. People want ideas. And if they're going after the president for something, they better know what they're going after, and they better use facts, and they better have a pretty hard landing spot, because they could really screw themselves out of some...
And at some point, they're going to have to... Numerous Democratic elected officials who have talked about, we know there was collusion. Mm-hmm. I saw it.
And in Matt's point to deference, when you hear people like the former CIA director speak as though he's got a secret set of facts, you tend to believe him,
right,
because that's how the CIA has always operated.
Right. Especially if you don't ask the follow-up question, which is, how do you know?
Yeah. Exactly. From some of the optimism that this presidency is unraveling. The panel is going to return quite a bit more in the show. But right now, let's talk about House Intelligence Committee Chair Adam Schiff. All right, so, what happened in the 2016 election that both potential leaders of the free world went to Eastern Europe, to Ukraine and Russia to get dirt on their opponents?
Well, first of all, let me say, investigation exonerated the president. Well, it's exactly the opposite.
Yeah, it doesn't exonerate Vladimir Putin, though, does it?
Yeah, absolutely. And look,
forceful about that, and Hillary Clinton has placed a lot of blame on Donald Trump. But for those of us who have looked at the Clinton Foundation and how it operated, it really did seem like it was a pay-for-play organization. And when she was Secretary of State, she was taking some very unusual donations, and one of the largest donors turned out to be the president of Ukraine.
Well, they were telling, first of all, they were giving their recommendation to the secretary, also contacting the people in her surrounding, saying that, but when we were looking at these unregistered lobbyists, and I'm not saying this about Secretary Clinton.
No, but there were Hillary's cronies who were working with your opponent.
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything about Secretary herself, but
I would. During one of the presidential debates against Mitt Romney, even though he was repeatedly warned, Russia did the same thing in the U.S. elections. Do you think they'll try and do it again in 2020?
They did exactly. First of all, they were turning blind eye on mass intrusion collusion into our elections. And
the new crop of American politicians have learned their lesson.
Look, the
to
Ukraine
stay out of foreign swamps because it doesn't do anyone
they were also
any good.
Bonaparte was on the other side. So I know that he directed to pass some documents
Yes.
to the other campaign.
Well, even that didn't help.
Well, that's the other issue. But if you look from our standpoint,
Yes.
and the last thing,
Yes.
from the very
Because
beginning.
we have to go, so
yes,
that's
I know.
the last thing.
I was at Warren Fusion. What do you think? I said, look, this is not true. I know the man. I know the Putin. I worked with both of them. Still, they
And still they're
proceeded
going for it.
from the very beginnings. Many of them knew that it was a setup.
We're not done talking about it. We're going to have
It's
much more
sad.
of it during the rest of the show. Mikhail Saakashvili,
Thank you for
so much,
inviting
Mr.
me.
President. Thank you for your time. Very good. Coming up, the mainstream media. Well, certain members of the media lost their objectivity and their minds during the course of the special counsel investigation, and now they can extinguish their hair on fire. Going to be. There were so many people in the media for so long driving the idea, and I was one of those people, and I will absolutely admit it. There was a time where the indictments were coming fast and furious, and Roger Stone, it felt like the noose was tightening around his neck, and Paul Manafort was hosed, and we didn't know what was happening because the Mueller camp was so leak-proof, and I'm glad I was wrong.
Yes, one should be glad that they were
I'm man
wrong
enough
with
to say that.
I appreciate that. I'm half man enough to say that. I guess what I will say, if it were as easy as saying I overestimated this, I thought that something was going to happen that didn't. I think there are a lot of people that could do that. I don't think that the way that our culture works right now, that we reward people for owning mistakes. And that's on both sides of the aisle. I mean, there are plenty of people that are still running with conspiracy theories on the right. Like today, even on Outnumbered, suddenly I was talking about Hillary Clinton's emails and Uranium One, and we could probably get to Pizzagate if we had gone on longer. And that's something that I think we need to address as a culture and a media culture, that you should be able to, not just that your tweet where saying, my bad, I was wrong with this, gets 1 million likes or something like that, which I feel like is what a lot of people are fending for in this, but really having colleagues and people in the space respect you more, and people that you speak to every day for saying, I messed up
Matt
here.
Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald tweeted this out. He had a great, really long column comparing this to the hunt for WMD in 2004, and how media was all in on that story. And it was everyone. It wasn't just a few sources. It wasn't just Fox News and National Review.
Right.
But everyone said, Saddam Hussein has him. We have to go in and get him. The world could end. This is actionable intelligence. And it was flat out wrong and very deadly. And of course, this may not be as deadly, but there were just as many people who ran with the narrative.
And Taibbi is very good about, I think it's going to go this way, and that's the wrong way to approach journalism.
There were a lot of wrong ways this story was presented, though.
Absolutely. And by the way, I think, Matt, you make an excellent point here. Part of this was we have a constitutional crisis, or we never needed him to begin with.
We need to make sure the president doesn't fire him because this is so important. He needs to be able to finish.
Yes.
Because if he doesn't finish, the president wins, then he has to lose.
By the way, how many
seconds?
Okay, we need to actually see it before people accept it. I would also add that
I don't mind seeing it. That's fine.
Oh,
See it.
really complicated subject matter with Russia, and there were too few people also who are experts actually in Russia and how Russia runs disinformation.
No, I actually don't buy that, given the number of agents, lawyers, and law enforcement that were involved in this investigation.
Oh no, I'm
There
talking
were
about
plenty of
TV.
Russia
I'm talking about
experts.
punditry
Oh,
and
yeah,
people's.
pundits are a dime a dozen. That's why I have this job. It's great. All right. Thank you guys so much.
That's why we're all here.
Yeah, exactly
We're a dime a
right.
dozen. We can be replaced.
A very good point. I'll be on Shannon Breen's show in a few minutes if you'd like to hear more.
Oh, coming up, the Mueller report did confirm one thing. Russians. Welcome back.
Great to be here, Kennedy. Thanks.
So, obviously, this isn't a rosy picture of Russia and their state hacking and disinformation campaign. The question is, where do we go from here?
Right.
We talk about Russia and all of this. Obviously, in the short term, it strains relations even more. And that can be incredibly problematic when you're talking about two nuclear superpowers. But what does it do to our relationship with China? Does that in any way open a door for the president to normalize trade relations there?
Deep-seated suspicion in Russia, not just of all people, but of the staff of his administration.
And that is a case that you can make, that kind of a distraction action hurts the ultimate big picture that requires subtlety and some degree of trust. And now that is disseminated all over the world. It does erode that trust a little bit. And whether they like it or not, he's still president for the next 2 years. So you lock it up and let's work together, Christian White. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Kennedy.
Great to talk to you. All right, coming up, Democrats have been counting